Hey, hey, we are back talking about anger resolution. It's not a subject that everybody gets really excited about. But I tell you what, if you can't solve it in your home, it's a real problem. And I think that we'll start looking into how we're going to recognize if anger's out of control in our home. We've been talking about the different things, just go over a couple of them is how we are tempered to begin with. I mean, you may be born with a certain way of just in your personality, having a little bit more stress in your nervous system or something like that. But really, anger out of control is a trained behavior, or it's a lack of correction on the behavior, or a lack of skill set in how you control your behavior. And we talked about that temperament coming from different family members, whoever took care of us as we were growing up. And when we look at that, it's you really have to think, well, what did I see at church? What did I see at the school? What was it like hanging out with my cousins, and who had a really hot temper, and when I got disciplined, was it in a very high tempered way? And so, like the can of paint that we talked about, you're mixing all of those different things up, and then that comes up with your temperament. Now, the temperament that you have to curb, you have to change the color of the paint, you have to add and take some things away, but then you still have to have the skill set to be able to control yourself. And you heard me say before that we're 100% responsible for our own behaviors. We're 100% responsible for our own behaviors. And then because of that, we have to look at and say, well, I did this or that. Why? I did this or that because I either wanted to or I lost control. And sometimes it's both. I really wanted to smack that person, and then I realized, yeah, I just let myself not have control. Self-control is a fruit of the spirit. The Bible talks about that. But sometimes we'll pray in a way where it's like, Lord, give us self-control. Lord, give us patience. Lord, when you give your life to Christ, his kingdom is set up inside of you. And because of that, you already have the fruit of the spirit. It's acting that out. A lot of times information is great. The Bible says to get information. Knowledge is huge. Understanding of that knowledge even makes it better. And then wisdom would say application. It would say this is how we apply everything. So we also talked about, being aware, self-aware of yourself. Like, what do you look like when you're starting to feel some anger? Like I may be sitting here smiling and you say something rude to me. My eyebrows might go down. There might be a posture change. I might sit back a little. I'm listening more intently. Well, I'm already entering the stages of anger because anger is really just emotion that says I want something to stop. I'm gearing up to see if I want something to stop. But once I settled that I want it to stop, now we're looking at this thing a little different. Now we're going to start moving from 1 to 10. And we talked quite a bit on that in one of the sessions, talking about how you don't want to jump from 1 to 10. And past 10 is rage. If the scale of anger escalation is from 1 to 10, past 10, you're entering rage. So if anger says, I want something to stop, and rage says, you know what, I want something to stop, but I don't believe it ever will. Well, then because of that, we don't care what happens to the other person. We also don't care what happens to us. And then anything goes. And that's just really dangerous. But in that 1 to 10 scale, definitely anything past a 5 begins to be destructive. We start pulling big levers. We start saying things to get at that other person, or just becoming like, how do I solve this? How can I get back at them? How can I make it stop? Um, and that's okay if you're using the 1 to 5, maybe, and escalating up a little bit because you should be going like that. Really annoyed me. To that was very aggravating. And now I'm starting to escalate. And you'll move up that ladder where, you're starting to realize I got to go for a walk. This is really starting to tick me off. And you give yourself permission to have an out, but you don't give yourself a permission to get out of anything. You might have to de-escalate before we go back in and deal with whatever's going on. But, we can get an out by saying, I'm going to take a time out. I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to cool off. I'm going to get the adrenaline out of my system. But once that adrenaline's gone, then I actually have to get back into it, confront if I need to, listen if I need to, really work out whatever it is that's going on. And some subjects will escalate right away, and you come back after a walk and all the adrenaline's gone, and you try to talk to that person about it. Instant adrenaline rush, and we're back to like, I got to go for another walk, a drive. I got to go talk to God. Whatever it is, you have to train yourself that you actually don't have permission to escalate that high. Unless someone's threatening your life, we don't go that high. It's kind of taught that that's the best way to protect yourself. So if you were a police officer and someone was coming against you or whatever, a soldier, whatever, it's not how angry you are that protects you, it's how much self control you have that protects you. You're more level headed when you don't rely on adrenaline and cortisol and fear. We're more level headed. We can actually problem solve the situation. If the house was on fire and a fireman was going to help lead me out of it and I was distraught, I really wouldn't want him to be distraught too, or angry, or over the top, and he can't fight his way out of the situation. How will he lead me anywhere if he's that out of control? And so, same thing with raising our children. Sometimes we get very angry, but how will I lead them if I'm not in control? So they will come up to equal my anger and go far above that if they want to win an argument. So if you're at a 5 and you equal to 5 with somebody, that person, if they just want to win, they're going to go to a 10. And then you'll want to climb that ladder and equal where they're at because, my Lord, we do not want them to win this argument or we don't want to feel run over. So when you think about it that way, it's like the most powerful spot that you can be at from a 1 to 10 is a 1, where you're not easily offended, where you're listening and thinking, is this person attacking me? Let me filter this out. Let me feel this out. What boundary could I have? I actually have some boundaries, so I don't feel threatened. I mean, some of these things are the things we have to learn so that we don't jump from a 1 to 10. The 10 is there mainly, we talked about this too, because we're afraid. We're afraid we'll lose the argument. We're afraid we're not going to be heard. We're afraid that they're going to run us over. We're afraid that we won't get our way. We're afraid of feeling dumb or shamed all over again or re experiencing trauma. So we don't stay at a level point. If that other person is on an unlevel point and they're past a 5 already, you can see they're going to say some things dangerous or whatever. You have to find a way to disengage and give them a break. Like, we can continue this conversation when we're both de-escalated. I'm going to walk away now and let's, when do you want to meet? An hour from now? Do you want to go for a walk later this evening and we could talk about it? Some people pick a restaurant because then they know they're not really allowed to go past a 5 at a restaurant because you're sitting there eating and there's all kinds of people around. They'll do that on purpose so that nobody goes past a 5. We also talked about self-control in the way of our speech, slowing everything down because fear speeds everything up. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And it's just like, blah, 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 blah. It's almost like being machine gunned. And faith, it can operate very slow. Sure, but slow. Like, I don't need to defend myself. I don't need to get all in a wad about this. I'm just going to sit and hear this person out. But then I am going to be heard. And if they're not in a listening capability spot, then I'm going to disengage because what I have to say also counts. I want what they have to say to count, but I also want what I have to say to count. And I want to be heard. This isn't a debate that someone has to win. It's more of trying to solve something. If we don't look at altercations, I'll call them, as something that we can solve or something that is there so that, we can bring it to a place of closure and we're all going to be okay. I might even cry a few tears. I might have been confronted about something. You might get confronted about something and it hurts. And so some tears might come, some just feelings of exasperation could be there. I think that sometimes we are so taught to not be angry that we never get to learn how to feel that feeling and then control it. The power is in the self control. The power is in the spot where I can control myself while listening to that other person. I'm not calculating at a high speed how I'm going to win this or what I could say. And if they ever do this again, and this is making me feel this way, I just have a confidence that I won't die if they don't hear me, right? And I need to just hear them out, but I need to also test if they're willing to hear me. If they're not ready to hear me, this is a one-sided conversation, and it's not good. And so we learn to disengage in those and just take a time out and reset it. And if the person's like, fine then, the whole fine then, fine, I'll just go out to the shed, or fine, I'll go to the store. I'm just going to leave. And I don't know when I'm coming back. And threats happen and whatever, you have to keep your calm. And you don't equal where that other person's at. They could just totally be losing it, but you don't go and equal where that person's at. You rein it in and look at them more like, wow, they're really angry. Wow, they are losing it. I'm not going to, though. I'm going to find a way to control myself. I am not a victim. We talked about this because if you make yourself a victim, then you see everyone as a bully. I've had people try to run me over, and I mean with their words, um, and do different things like that. And so I could look at that like a victim, like I never want to talk to that person again. It was so hurtful, and I'll never recover. And you get into that. Well, that keeps the situation a bully. And every time you recall that situation and don't have closure on it, it will bully you. You could move to New York from Minnesota and it's going to bully you because wherever you go, there you are. And where there you are, you have your memory base and your information says to you, you're a victim. See, and then you'll start avoiding people who talk similar to the person that talked to you wrong, that wronged you, or your view is that they wronged you. Sometimes we have a view of that when the person was actually just trying to talk to us. But when we're in victim mentality, we can't hear that. We're not willing to hear that. We're not willing to cry. We're not willing to confess. We're not willing to own behavior or confront another person's behavior. So I want to say something. There is a difference between confronting somebody and then carefronting someone. So take a deep breath, breathe in, and we'll go into this next section talking about the difference between carefronting and confronting. And when I teach classes, I ask people, how many of you, if need be, could confront a situation, a person, uh, now whatever it is that you're there and you're like, "No, I'm going to front that." Is really that what you're saying? I'm going to find a way to front that conversation. I'm going to find a way to address this. Is another way of saying it. And whenever I ask that, how many of you are good at it? How many of you want to do that? If I got 50 people in a class, 2 people will sneak their hand up real slow. And the average person does not want to confront because when you say the word confront, it draws a picture. And the only time we've seen people, uh, really be confronted looks to us different than what the word confront means. I can confront a child. Let's say I bought a new sofa and they're jumping on the sofa. I don't have to confront them by coming in and just losing everything and being like, why are you doing this to my stuff? And just losing it over them. And then I call that confronting them. I can say, hey, buddy, I know I just bought this couch. And so I'm going to ask that you play over there. Can you do that for me? I actually just confronted them. It was a poor behavior to me. They might not have known it was a poor behavior, but I confronted them and asked for a change. That's confronting. So because people have had such a issue with the word confront, kind of like you have an issue with the word anger. Well, let me explain that. Um, like if I said I was at the grocery store and the checkout lady, oh man, she was so angry. Now I could say that to 10 people, and each one of them would have a view of what I just created in their mind. One person might have a background with a lot of yelling, and they just picture that person just screaming because you said they were angry. Another person might have where they picture this person pacing and wanting to throw something and yelling in that. Another person might actually see it where it was like, oh, were the person's eyebrows down? Did they give you a stern look? And in the true sense of the word angry, in the sense of I'm having an emotion where I want something to stop, I can talk just like this, and technically I'm angry. I need you to stop what you're doing right now. See, I don't have to lose it. I don't have to be, or any of this stuff or have big body language. See, we talked a little bit about that. I don't have to peacock out, like, ooh, I'm scared no one's going to listen to me. And then peacock out. And I'm walking around like a peacock, making a lot of noise, but really I'm the scared one. That's not confronting. And that's not, everyone's got the picture of anger, the picture of confronting, but your picture might be off. So if you say you don't want to go to that person's house, man, they got a bad temper. Well, for one person, if they just raise their voice like this, they're like, I'm never going over there again. Right? They might just have a loud voice. They might be a person that'll confront you and it intimidates you. And so then we'll just check out. So the picture you have of the word confront and the picture you have of the word anger is really important to identify. What are your levels of that? Because trauma is recorded in the brain. And if, for instance, someone's telling you to take the garbage out, take the garbage out. How many times do I have to tell you? If they're doing something like that and you're a small child, that will register in you really loud. So you record everything 24 hours a day. Your subconscious is recording. It's helping to keep your body alive when you're asleep. It stashes all the files. Your hypothalamus is involved with that. All right. So if that's how you remember things, you remember them loud. Then when someone's talking in a stern voice, like, no, we can't do this at this business. This has got to stop. You may hear them like they're screaming at you. I have had people say of me, I may have confronted something and they'll walk away and tell everybody else, she was all up in my grill, like in my face. You could tell she was really ticked off, but I didn't talk any different than when I'm talking right now. But how they heard it was through their trauma. So be really watchful that you're not hearing things through your trauma. Does that make sense? I hope so. So now let's go on with the second word. It's a word, maybe it's a word that somebody else used. I don't know. I never heard it. So I started using it because I thought it was a better way of putting the word confront. I would say carefront because it would remind me of this. I care about you enough that I'm going to front this situation. And I care about me enough that I'm going to front this situation. Where the word confront gives a totally different picture in most people's minds. I got to go confront them. I'm going to really let them know, man. Where carefront is, hey, do you got a few minutes we can talk? Because I don't want this anger between the two of us. I don't want any, thing that's hurtful to be hanging out between the two of us. I really value our relationship. So can we talk about this? That's carefront. That's the starting of carefronting. And here's what I heard you say to me, and that really did hurt me. You know, uh, could you explain yourself? Because I really want to know where you were coming from. And usually the person's more calm and can explain themselves better. When you're upset, you just say what comes to your mind if you don't have self control. So the difference here is carefront versus confront. If you're scared to confront something, then care enough about that other person to say something, care enough about yourself to say something. Most of the time, We will find a person. So let's say it's in a business, in a church, something like that. We'll go find a carefronter or a person who's brazen enough to confront in our mind, right? And then we'll tell them the whole story. We'll get it all going, and then we'll push that person forward to go do the confronting for us. That's never a good situation. Never a good plan. It triangulates everything. It starts making it really messy. We have to be brave enough to say, I need to talk about this with you. Now, the Bible makes it clear you go to talk to somebody about something and they're like, no, or they have the same behavior all over, then you're to take somebody with you and try to confront that situation, right? And you keep climbing a ladder of it. It isn't that you just go, well, they yelled again and you walk off. That's never going to get resolved in you. And that could cause a bitter root in your very own heart. You got to guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it comes the well springs of life, is what the Bible says. With all diligence. So you're not messing around when you're guarding your heart. Like, I don't want anything entering here that's going to take up too much space, time, and energy in my brain. I don't want anything entering here that's going to stay a pain to me. I want to be able to process it, unpack it, forgive it, ask forgiveness for it, send it away. I think that's the best plan. And most of us don't have the training to know how to do that. But I can tell you what, if you move toward that direction and you ask God to help you, you will be amazed at how skill sets will start taking place for you. But when you go to use a skill set, you have to slow down. We talked a little bit about that on one of the other podcasts, where you purposely, instead of coming up here to talk to this person, because somehow now they're deaf, they're still only 5 feet away from you, but we're going to talk louder. It's kind of like our interpretation of, if let's say that you speak English and someone speaks Spanish, somehow it's just habit for people that if they want to be understood and they know the person understands a little bit of English, instead of saying the English to them in a normal tone of voice, they talk louder. They're like, can I have some water? And they're practically yelling in the person's face. They're not deaf. They can still hear you. They're just trying to interpret what you're saying. So if you come to a situation, you got to lower your voice and lower your body's interpretation of how you feel. Coming up, you know what, I want to talk about this. And doing the head thing and waving your finger and doing this a lot with your hands and stuff. I'm just here to talk. That's all. I just want to talk. I'm not looking to fight or anything. Yeah, your body is, because 96% of that person's interpretation of you is sight. 96%. Like when you're watching this right now, you're interpreting me, whether you love me or hate me, I annoy you or you want more. It's one of those things that you're looking 96%, you're going to interpret what you think about me. So if I was on this broadcast, like, I don't want you guys to ever be angry, and just start changing my voice and my posture. Some people put their head back. They got different mannerisms. And so when they walk into the room, people know that person's mad. I don't have to show you that. Who says I have to show you that? That's what children do. Children try to intimidate, like, I'm coming just really, I'm going to let you have it. So you scare the another person. That's what we're looking for, to see if we can be scary. And you know what I find, that in my immature areas where I used to want to posture like that and stuff like that, when I talk to a person who talks slow and calm and they have good eye contact, they're actually more scary. I grew up used to yelling. So after a while, yelling isn't as scary if you're in it constantly. It has to get to such a high level that you're like, okay, probably I should do something. I mean, that's what ends up happening when you yell at your children. They disassociate from that. So I'm just saying, don't come with the body posture like I have to show them that I'm upset. Come with the body posture of peace. Okay? And that peace will carefront. I'm not moving from the statement. I'm talking slower. And I want to talk about what happened here today. And is this a good time to do that? And then you're looking at the person, good eye contact the whole time. Just to learn that skill is like, it's most people describe that as like, I almost lost it. I was just white knuckling. I, you know, or they'll call me and say, I did it. I did. I made it through the conversation without any body posture. Well, if you can't have a self-analysis, you don't know what your body posture is. Like I said, when my husband and I started teaching a 60-hour abuse recovery course, we had to name the other person's posture because most of the time you can't see yourself. And so I told him, I said, your eyebrows will go down. Well, the thing is, my husband does have sensitive eyes on the other hand. And if he's outside talking to you, his eyebrows are down. And so to another person, they might interpret that as angry, but that's not what it is. His eyebrows are down. When I'm in bright light, my eyes go more open. Don't ask me why, but I'm like, oh, it's really bright out here. And and so each person's different. But if I'm starting to escalate, usually my husband identified this with me. He said, well, your posture will change. Your head will go to the left and your hip will cock out. You'll just all of a sudden like, and that's more like me saying, what did you just say? And it's like that. And so I got to watch myself because if that's my first step toward body posturing and anger, I can't let myself do that. I have to be able to stand there and have a posture that shows on my face like I'm still listening. And I'm just going to assume you're not trying to hurt me right here up front. And, you know, I don't have to take big actions and answer back. And a lot of times people are angry, they're pulling those big levers again. They'll be like, I'll call the police or, get off my property or let's get a divorce. Any of those are big lever statements. And that's supposed to freak you out. And you can't give that other person your posture. It's kind of like, wow, you're really mad. I can see you're really mad, and you need to cool off before we can talk about this. I don't want to talk about this. I told you already, And it's like, well, okay, well, maybe when you cool off, you'll be willing to talk about it. Now, I may walk away from a conversation like that, having had the victory, and still have a tear in my eye, still feel like, wow, that was rough. But I'm not going to give that other person that. Self control does not give the other person what they baited you for. They put the fish hook out, they baited it, and you bit. And so it has to look like, you know what? I'm just going to stay calm. I'm going to slow my thoughts down. And as that person's revving up, I'm not equaling their energy. I'm just not. I'm going to stay level headed in thinking and know how to posture myself, when to disengage and when to get involved. So carefronting really has that skill. And we're afraid to confront or carefront because we really don't have that skill. And the people that are the hardest to carefront a situation in, believe it or not, most of the time are the people that's closest to us. Because the people that are closest to us, we say the meanest things too. They're the safest for us to explode on. They're the safest for us to just let go and our expectation is they're going to take it because they love us. That's how our brain says it and it's so wrong. But if the neighbor comes over, you're not going to talk to them the same way. You're not going to give them that. And if you are, there's some bigger problems here, right? And that's something that we need to address. And we will do that. We're going to keep going into skill sets, but I'm also going to be showing you in the next program, in the next session of here on C.O.R.E programs, anger resolution, I'm going to show you how to disarm dirty fighting because you might be using dirty fighting techniques and not even know you're doing it. And I think we need to find that out. See you next time.